Okay, so there's a huge debate kicking off in the heart of Europe. It's forcing one of the continent's biggest powers to really look in the mirror and decide its future. Let's dive into this critical moment for Germany.
Wow, right out of the gate, a message that absolutely pulls no punches. This was just one of many signs seen at these massive protests, and it really captures the raw anger and suspicion at the very core of this whole thing.
And the timing here is just everything. This all went down just one day before a massive vote in the Bundestag, Germany's parliament. Thousands of students and activists just flooded the streets of Cologne. This wasn't just some protest, it was a loud, last-minute message sent directly to the people in charge.
So what's all the fuss about? What is the government actually proposing that's caused such a firestorm? Let's break down the plan.
The big issue here is a new conscription law. It's being pushed by Chancellor Friedrich Merz's government, and let me tell you, this isn't some minor policy change. It's a fundamental shift in Germany's entire military posture.
The scale of this plan is just huge. The goal is to build up a military force of 460,000 soldiers. That's a massive, massive expansion, and a complete 180 from where things have been heading for years. So, how are they going to get there? Well, the plan kicks off with a survey sent to every single 18-year-old asking if they're willing to serve. Now, pretty much everyone sees this as a clear first step toward bringing back mandatory military service. The government says it's the only way to fix these long-running problems of underfunding and not having enough troops.
Okay, so we've got the plan. Now let's flip the coin and look at why it's facing such a powerful wave of opposition. The people protesting have some very specific and deeply felt arguments against all this.
And this quote, this one really gets to the heart of it. It's from a demonstrator who's actually lived through a war. It's a painful reminder that for so many people, this isn't some abstract political debate. It's about a traumatic past they absolutely do not want to see repeated. A second major argument is all about the money. Protesters are flat out accusing the government of pushing this, not for national security, but to line the pockets of big defense companies. They see it as a move that serves corporate interests first and foremost. This quote came from a youth activist speaking to the crowd, and it really captures this feeling that an entire generation is just being used. They feel like they're being treated not as citizens, but as a resource to be tapped to solve problems they had no part in creating.
And this really gets to a core accusation. On one side, you have the government pointing to very real problems, underfunding, bad planning, you name it. But the protesters are basically saying, yeah, but instead of the people in power fixing their own mistakes, they're just shifting the whole burden onto our shoulders.
This brings us to a fundamental disagreement about what a government should even be spending its money on. For the demonstrators, it's pretty simple. A dollar spent on tanks is a dollar that can't be spent on nurses or schools.
And I mean, you can't get any clearer than this. This banner puts the choice in really stark terms. It's a direct demand for investment in people and social services over what they see as a rush toward rearmament.
But here's what's really important to get. This movement isn't just about saying no. The protesters are actually proposing a completely different way of thinking about foreign policy.
They call it a logic of peace. The core idea is to move away from this traditional security-first mindset that so often leads to conflict, and instead to adopt an approach that's all about proactively creating peace. So what does that look like in practice? Well, they argue it's a three-step process. First, you actually talk to your opponents. You don't just shut them out. Second, you make a real effort to understand where they're coming from. And third, you tackle the root causes of conflict, things like global economic injustice. So here you have the two worldviews, side by side. The protesters claim the government's security logic is ultimately about controlling resources, but their logic of peace argues that real, lasting security can only be built through dialogue and fairness for everyone. So with these two powerful, competing visions on the table, Germany really does find itself at a pivotal moment. The protests were just the prelude to the main event.
The immediate future is packed with tension. That big vote is scheduled for Friday. Student groups are already calling for nationwide strikes to ramp up the pressure. And you've got established political parties throwing their weight against the law. The stage is definitely set for a major political showdown.
And so we're left with this fundamental question. The choice facing Germany isn't just about a single law. It's about defining its role in the world for a generation to come. Will it be a path defined by military strength or one guided by a new vision of peace? The answer is coming very, very soon.